Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of On Brand from Muse by Clio. I'm Nicole Purcell, the president of the Clio Awards. This is Milo. And next to me, I have my co-host, Mr. Tim Nutt, our editor-in-chief of Muse by Clio. Hey, Tim, how are you?
Doing pretty well, Nicole. How are you?
Well, you see that Milo is ready to get involved again today, so we're very excited. Who do we have? Who are we talking to today and actually having a cocktail with, which I'm very excited.
We are excited today to be welcoming Jason Mulderig. He's the SVP of Brand Marketing for HBO and HBO Max at Warner Media. Of course, HBO has been doing incredible things. They're one of the great creative brands in the world at the moment, not just in entertainment, just across the board. Jason's been very busy with the launch of HBO Max, which I'm sure we'll get into, as well as lots of other cool brand level marketing at HBO as well. So thrilled to welcome Jason Mulderig.
Hey, Jason.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Cheers. Good afternoon.
Cheers.
Just so everyone knows, I am a cork dork, and I'm drinking a wine from Sonoma called Chapelet, a nice Cabernet. I go to Napa like a few times a year, except for this year. So that is what I'm having this afternoon. How about you guys?
Very nice.
I am
Summer Ale, Peak Organic, out of Maine.
I am also drinking a Maine beer because I was just there on vacation last week, and I am having a Viridian Pale Ale, which is actually from my hometown of Biddeford, Maine, where I was born.
Oh, very cool.
And what's funny about it is I don't like India Pale Ales, but this one I love.
Because it's from your place. It's from your home.
I think so.
Yeah, there's more breweries now than they have people, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So I love to start off all the time and just ask people, it's, working from home now. Number one, where are you? Who are you living with? How is it going? Are you enjoying it? As you saw, I have Milo here. That's who I've been, camping out with in Manhattan for the last few months.
Yeah, I am on the North Fork of Long Island, in wine country, which maybe isn't the best place to be during the COVID, or maybe it is a really good place.
I don't. Place.
Yeah.
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, look, we were fortunate enough to be able to get out of the city and come out here with my wife and two kids. The apartment, with the sort of stay-at-home orders got really, really small, so at least they have some room to get out and run around here. And it was surreal at first, but we're finding a pretty good balance now, luckily.
And how has it been doing calls, and how old are your kids, and are people coming in on your meetings, or is it more?
Yeah, I have two girls. They're 7 and 10, and they've been pretty good about it. And usually when they do make an appearance, it's usually pretty funny. We had a team building exercise the other day where we were just playing, I think it was 2 truths and a lie or something like that. And they both wanted to play and we let them play. It was a lot of fun. And they can't wait to get on the next call now for the next meeting and continue to play these games that we play all day long, apparently at work.
I hope we get to see them then. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we know that this May that you guys just launched HBO Max. So what were your original marketing plans, and what did you have to pivot to, if you had to, with everything that happened with the pandemic?
Yeah, it started early, but right when sort of the stay-at-home orders came down and we started working from home, we were about 12 weeks out from launch. And so I'd say everyone from a product standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, was like, whoa, what are we going to do? We have such a huge task ahead of us. How are we going to continue to do this? But everyone adjusted really quickly. I was really surprised how not a single team really missed a beat. And so our original plan was to launch this off of some huge media events. I mean, we were looking to create national awareness with this product. It was a big launch. So we were looking at the NCAA tournament and we were looking at the NBA playoffs, and both of those were canceled. So we had to rethink our entire media strategy, condense the flight a little bit, and really try to have maximum impact. What we ended up doing was essentially roadblocking the morning shows, primetime television, and the late night shows over a 2-day period to kind of create our own moment. And that was the way we thought we could go into the market and create maximum impact without having these sort of big events that we could launch this campaign off of. And that turned out to be very effective. And then, we sustained a steady beat up to launch, and then we bookended the launch again with another big sort of takeover roadblock over multiple days of anywhere you could buy media across TV and digital platforms.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think we've got one of the launch spots that we want to show. I know you have a few different assets, but let's show the 30.
Penny, that's where I sit.
Hey, scram!
There's a little something I put together.
Let's take a photo. You got it.
We've got all your favorites. HBO Max, where HBO meets so much more.
Oh yeah, I think it's an interesting challenge. HBO is such a strong brand, existing brand, and then Max brings in a lot more programming to that brand. Could you sort of articulate, what the marketing message at the core really was?
Yeah, really what we wanted to reinforce was that this is a collection. It is curated, it's crafted, it's mindfully assembled, and everything in this campaign and everything in the product is instantly recognizable as some of the most iconic programming around. So really it becomes about quality and breadth and range. And the range of content is one of the things that we really wanted to have fun with and develop a tone of voice for HBO Max that was different than HBO. So, in this spot, you have different ways to think about this content, from friends to enemies to all different ways in which you can create a through line through this rich array of content that we have.
Right. I know you were involved, you've been at HBO for quite a while. You were involved in the launch of HBO Go as well as HBO Now. Could you sort of tell us what you learned from those launches that maybe was useful this time?
Yeah, I think HBO Now is probably the one that is sort of the best analog for it, because that was when we moved direct to consumer. So anytime you do that, I think, move from a wholesaler to a D2C business is pretty transformational for how you approach marketing. So prior to that, brand marketing was essentially responsible for, kind of building the halo of the brand. And, some of what we did was more of a creative indulgence, if you want to go all the way back to like HBO Voyeur and things like that. But once we launched HBO Now, we were also responsible for subscriber acquisition as well. So when we launched, we had this huge pent up demand of people wanting HBO. And so they all came in the first 30 days. We had 500,000 subscribers and it was great. But then after that, we realized that we were talking to an audience, if we wanted to continue to grow, that wasn't familiar with HBO. They needed to be primed. They hadn't drank the Kool-Aid yet. So some things became very apparent to us from a marketing standpoint, sort of continuing to maintain the image of the brand, but also developing and articulating a unique selling proposition, especially since we were and continue to be at the highest price in the category at $14.99. So the value of brand marketing in connecting the dots for consumers across all of the program marketing. We like to say that we had to move from essentially a house of brands, which are all our individual shows and where primarily like the marketing investment sat, to a branded house and make sure people knew why we were worth more. So that approach to multi-level communication development, both at an emotional level and then more at a functional level, to talk about the value of the service, I think really starts to pave the way for the foundation of how we would approach launching HBO Max from a communication standpoint, and really starting to think about the audiences outside of HBO or who hadn't chosen to take HBO before, and creating this new sort of content mix and viewing occasions across all this new content that was coming from HBO Max and this bundle. So if you want to think about like Studio Ghibli or Craftopia, I sat down and watched Craftopia with my girls. It's their favorite show, and it's one of their favorite times of the week where we can kind of sit down and, HBO Max to bring this new occasion to me and also to parents, across the country is really fun. And then Studio Ghibli, it's such high quality. It's so magical in its animation and the stories that it tells. To sit down and share that with them has been a lot of fun.
And I guess you're 6 or 7 weeks in, something like that. Are the metrics? Can you tell us how things look, and if there have been any surprises in terms of the rollout?
Look, we're really sort of happy with how consumers have continued to engage with the content and the overall response to it. From a subscriber standpoint, I mean, we're not going to mention anything at this moment. We have AT&T is going to provide some insights next week, but I'll say in terms of the brand marketing and the campaign that we've put out, consumers have really responded extremely well to it. We did a lot of testing before we launched it, obviously, to make sure that the campaign was building affinity and familiarity with the offering, right? It's a complex message to get out there. It's HBO, plus it's all this other stuff that perhaps you wouldn't normally attribute to HBO, and now it's part of this great collection. So all the research that we did prior to launching it, we have seen in the continued measurement of the campaign and its impact from a brand health standpoint. If you saw these spots from a media standpoint, we continue to move all those same levers, right? And so it's good to see that campaign continuing to drive that preference, that affinity, that intent, and differentiation.
So I know some of the new creative that you guys just put out with Backstories series, which I think is so cool because you're interviewing actually the actors and the showrunners, which is so interesting. We're going to show a quick clip, and then I'd love to talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So the week before Black Lady Sketch Show premieres, we're promoting the show at Just for Laughs, a comedy festival in Montreal. And the next morning, we get ready to leave, and my friend Tishana and I, we're supposed to have an SUV waiting for us downstairs at the hotel. So we look left, look right, and it's not there. And so we ask the valet folks, and they say, oh, actually, there is an SUV waiting. It's around the corner. We'll flag him down. Then this amazing SUV pulls up. It is this long, black, shiny SUV. The chauffeur gets out in a tuxedo and top hat, and he says, ladies, your chariot awaits. He opens the door. The backseat door is open backwards. You know, it's one of those fancy things. We get inside. It's all this camel leather interior. There's like carpet on the ceiling. I don't know what it's called. Suede. There's like suede on the ceiling. So we're like, oh, okay. And so the driver, he looks back through the open partition and he says, Michelle? And I go, oh, maybe you have the wrong record. It's for Robin Thede. And he goes, Robin BB? And I go, nope. And he goes, what's your other passenger's name? And I said, Tishana. And he said, Rickshana? And I go, you know what, sir? It's okay. We're clearly in the wrong car. We'll get out. And I open the door, and he turns around, and in the sternest voice goes, don't get out.
I love the animation. I love from her telling the story. How do you choose the shows that get the treatment for this, and how does it tie in with your brand marketing?
Yeah, we've been experimenting with longer form content on digital platforms and things like that. So this is actually one of those experimentations that we started last year. There are multiple factors that go into selecting that. Is there an interesting story to be told? Is certainly one of them. Is there a passionate fan base that is engaged with the content that we feel like we can deepen that relationship with? And then, do we have willing talent? Because lots of times these stories originate from real human experiences, right? That influence sort of these multidimensional characters that appear in our shows. And this is one way to bring it to life. Now, here with this one, this happens to be one that is more comedic, and certainly from a sketch show. Robin can tell you stories over and over again. She told us so many stories that we actually didn't get to animate, but we wanted to come up with a series that would basically give you sort of instead of a behind the scenes story, it's a behind the emotion story or behind the inspiration story that shapes characters. And she just went off, and sort of the backstory to the backstory is that, just as you were laughing and just as I was laughing, and I've seen that story probably 100 times, we were laughing so hard, and we had people in a room next door, and you could hear them laughing from the hotel room next door. So it was amazing. And she's such a talented storyteller. And we just felt that, she was such a great selection. And I wish I had enough of a budget to animate all of the stories that she told us.
There's another one with the Danny McBride. This is the other new one that just came out, the Righteous Gemstones one. That one's pretty classic as well.
Yeah, and that one's really touching too, because it goes back to his youth and talks about how, this puppet show that he used to do with his family and his mom at church really, it seemed like it formed sort of his love for theater and love for storytelling and performance. And then to have that sort of transition into the Righteous Gemstones, especially at the end, is so satisfying. And if you've seen the social comments around that, obviously the fans of Righteous Gemstones and Danny just love that story. But then you see like his mom and her friends starting to engage, because at the end he's like, I hope I made my mom proud. But look, it's just quality storytelling at the end of the day, and it's quality storytelling in our marketing. And I think that's a reflection of the content that we have and the halo that we continue to build around the HBO brand.
So the long form storytelling sort of fits in with the brand mission of just telling great stories in the programming as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Wanted to talk to you about also the kind of social issues marketing you guys have done recently, which has also been sort of, very unique. First of all, around mental health, you guys did a really interesting campaign over the last year around mental health, which was we wrote about on Muse. And then also you've done some work in female empowerment too, to very important and interesting issues. Can you sort of talk about both of those initiatives and sort of how HBO sees itself and its role kind of as an activist brand or a socially engaged brand?
Yeah. The brand tells so many different kinds of stories, and it's a brand that operates really on the cusp of culture, and our stories have the power to provoke conversation and change. And mental illness is one that we felt like we could continue to have a really positive, fruitful conversation around, and the impact of our marketing could help destigmatize mental illness and promote mental wellness. And that's we've featured so many different kinds of mental illness on screen, be it from like Tony Soprano, all the way to Euphoria, and we wanted to make sure that we were responsibly having a conversation around the content that we put out, providing resources. But then also just engaging our audience on a deeper emotional level and continuing to build that deep emotional relationship with our audience. So with It's Okay, when we launched these sort of mental health bumpers, as we called them, the advisory is a conceit that, is used across every single entertainment. I actually think it's required by like the FCC or something like that. We put a little twist on this, and we were using it to create conversation and provoke conversation and bring to light some issues that maybe you didn't initially recognize on first watch of that show, that series, or that character, and say like, hey, this person, the writer was thinking about some of this when they wrote that character, and it's more common than you think. And then to have a clinical psychologist come in and add deeper context to that and explain it, and then also work with NAMI to provide resources for anyone who potentially may be in danger or does need help. We were overwhelmed by the response. I mean, we didn't do that to get a huge response or a billion earned media impressions, which is actually what we did get off of this effort. But I just think it was evidence of the brand tapping into something from a cultural standpoint that was one, authentic. We walked the walk there, but also something that was much needed in the world as well. And we're continuing that effort in a variety of ways. And we look forward to continuing that campaign.
I love that.
And strong women are also sort of central to many of the stories HBO tells, which you've also been able to sort of highlight in the marketing too.
Yeah, we've done a couple efforts over the last year that two totally different efforts, but both under the sort of the banner of what we say is Because of Her. And initially it was launched to acknowledge the women that we had behind the camera who were providing so much incredible creative work and contributing, if not leading, and the driving force behind some of the content and series that we had out at the moment. But since they weren't in front of the camera, like an Issa, where she's the power behind the camera and in front of the camera, we felt like we wanted to launch a campaign to acknowledge them. So I think my favorite creative that we had there actually had Dwayne Johnson, with his female director's voice coming out of his mouth and giving him instruction, which for Dwayne to be able to do that, and then, also post it on his Instagram, someone who is like, the icon of masculinity, to have a female voice come out of his mouth that is directing him and telling him what to do and driving his performance, in Chloe Dumont was really incredible. And we had a series of other ones. And then we came back and created a very totally different experience called the Inspiration Room, which was part exhibit, part cultural center, part writing center in New York City over a period of a week during Women's History Month, where we gathered the diaries of women throughout history. And, we also sourced a bunch of diaries as well and just asked women to sort of write down their thoughts. And, the diary was a symbol of a place where, just like many of our characters, it's a place to explore complex thoughts and feelings and be unedited and unfiltered. And it was just such a momentous event for us. It also happened to be when we were pre-promoting Gentleman Jack, which was based on the diaries of Anne Lister. We were able to have Padma Lakshmi and Soledad O'Brien come down and also do screenings. And it was just a really empowering, inspiring event.
Wow, that's amazing. You guys are doing a lot of great things. And talking about your great creative work, of course, we have to talk about your creative agencies that you work with. Top one being Wieden and Kennedy. And how does that relationship work? And are you guys on the same page with a lot of things? Do you work with others, or is it really focused with them?
Yeah, we're fortunate that there's a lot of people who want to work on the HBO brand, and we get to work with a lot of really great agencies. BBDO has worked on HBO Max and continues to work on HBO Max. We've continued to work with Wieden on socially minded projects. I will say they're such a thoughtful group of creators that just really understand the power of transformative communication. So whether it's storytelling or communication, everything that they put out in the world it has such a huge impact, and it always strikes just the right note and gets at the cultural nuances. And we've really enjoyed working with them. It's been a really healthy meeting of minds. I'd say oftentimes we agree on the exact tone and balance that we want to strike. I mean, I think the only time we disagree is when we're talking about budgets. So other than that,
I think that's everybody.
Yeah. That's par for the course, right?
I mean, the TV space is just getting so crowded, and there's also so many brands within that space doing really interesting creative work. How do you guys feel about the competitive landscape, and how important is creativity to you to sort of standing out in that space?
Yeah, the streaming wars, right? I think fortunately it's not a winner take all kind of situation. It's not a zero sum game. We know from research that consumers will watch between 3 to 4 streaming services. So they're going to piece together the right package for them. We're competing in the full service category at this point. We're going after as many audiences as we can with the content that we have. So we feel really good about our position just as sort of the quality player, and continue to focus on content that matters and resonates with audiences. I mean, we have huge icons and a huge legacy of storytelling to build off of this. And of course, HBO. So we feel really good about the continued creativity, both on the HBO side and now on the Max original side and the library content that we have. We try to reflect that as much as we can in our marketing and pull those emotional levers. I think emotionally driven marketing is incredibly important, especially when you're at a $14.99 price point, which is a few dollars more than anyone else in the category. So we're going to continue to sort of focus on that and focus on the things that we feel like will move our fan bases and engage our audiences.
Biggest challenge for you guys at the moment? Is it just pushing HBO Max and trying to explain get some clarity on that for what's, as you mentioned before, it's a bit of a...
Yeah. I mean, there's going to continue to be a lot of HBO Max, both HBO originals, Max originals. We just released a spot yesterday, a 3-minute piece that featured both originals from the 2 originals brands that we now have. And we will continue to drive subscriptions and brand marketing around that. But there are also HBO efforts from a brand standpoint as well. HBO is still HBO. So we have another backstory actually that is in the works. We're putting the finishing touches on it. We're looking forward to releasing that. I think it's our best and most ambitious one yet. We're continuing to plan an It's Okay campaign, especially during this COVID time period where people's mental health and staying at home should always be a conversation. So we're looking forward to continuing that. Curb Your Enthusiasm, the 20th anniversary is coming up in October. So we're looking forward to having some fun with that. And of course, Emmys are coming up as well. So look, we always hope that our programs will be recognized and our talent will be recognized. So, that's another opportunity for the brand to shine.
The new season of Curb definitely got me through the first few weeks of COVID, sure.
And it's still going. We announced another season. So, I love that show, and I think everyone loves that show. And it's so great to see Larry continue it.
Oh, very cool. Is there anything you are looking forward to sort of personally that you're hopeful for as we sort of emerge hopefully from this crisis?
Oh, personally and hopefully, I'm hopeful my kids go back to school. And I think I'm really looking forward to just sitting down with my coworkers, with the agency partners that we have, because there's really no substitute for just face-to-face contact. As much as we have been able to pivot and be as efficient as possible, it's really, at the end of the day, it ends up being about communication, and it's much easier to do face-to-face. And that's always been the favorite part of my role in working for HBO and working with agencies on the creative side of the business. And I just miss it. So if we can get back to that, at any point in time, I will be really excited.
Well, we completely agree with you. And thank you so much for spending time with us. And I'm sorry that we didn't get to meet your daughters. And I would have loved that. But thank you again. It was really great speaking with you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, Jason. And thank you guys for watching. For the latest in creative news, check out Muse by Clio every day. And we're back every Thursday with new episodes of the brand. So thanks for watching.